What's up, guys? It's Jamie. Just studying now for my last hopeful law exams ever. So this is it. I'm rounding out my last 3 law exams of law school, and it's off to study for the bar. So I figured I'd just randomly talk about some of what I'm studying as a way to help remind me of what I need to know for my test. I'm studying election law right now, and the main thing I'm looking at our campaign finance regulations, specifically with corporate speech. And the main case that we kind of left off on was Citizens United versus FEC, the Federal Election Commission. And that was in 2010. And the issue is whether or not corporations should be able to fund through their general treasury electioneering communications, which in other words, like issue advocacy things before a primary or a main campaign election. And the court had struck down a ban that said that 30 days before primary, or 6 days I think before an election. It might be reversed. Gotta double check. But basically, the court struck down time restrictions on corporations spending money on election ads, and they gave a couple of reasons, saying that the First Amendment is being put down here, although that wasn't the case in the past. The court wasn't as deferential to the First Amendment with money as speech, but it is now. And it said that concerns that there's going to be forced speech by the shareholders, those who dissent from the corporation, is just not strong, because the corporations could fund the issue ads on TV otherwise. And of course, this is talking about broadcast communication, so stuff that's like 50,000 people or more. And it all to me just seems kind of ridiculous that any speech, even speech is money, money is speech, which is a separate issue. But I just don't see why the government should be banning speech whatsoever, or money for issue ads, or even contributing to political campaigns. Mostly because at the end of the day, everything's run by people, and corporations or human beings should be able to give money to candidates, because ultimately, even though people will say, well, a corporation can exist past the shareholders and the CEO because they're run by the state and they go on in perpetuity, basically, it's still, the corporation doesn't operate outside of the people who are in it, and the people who are in it often have a vested interest. And this isn't my stamp of approval on elections or voting or anything like that, but rather just showing the arbitrariness of voting regulations, or regulations related to voting and elections when it comes to funding through corporate entities, especially on giving to campaigns directly. As it stands, there's a limit on individuals, which kind of gets changed with inflation as well. I think the last time I checked, it was like something around $2,500. But I don't know. I'm thinking on my exam they're going to ask, that my professor is going to ask something related to this, and so I'm trying to decide exactly how to answer it if she brings about something with individuals, and maybe asked to relate the court's new movement with corporation restrictions, like saying that Congress can't limit corporations to give directly for issue ads. If there's going to be maybe a new shift toward individuals also being eased up upon in regulations because of this new kind of preference for First Amendment openness. We'll see, I guess. But the underlying issues is, of course, money is speech. Does money equal speech? Which I don't think it does, but that doesn't mean that speech and money should be viewed differently in terms of liberty. In other words, you have a right to speak. You don't necessarily have a right to speak on private property, but you have a right to contract with somebody to use that private property for speech. Likewise, the government should be telling what you do with your money if you are not hurting another person and voluntarily contracted with your money. You're exchanging your money for a good or service. You exchange your money, for use of a newspaper, a space, or TV, or anything like that. these arbitrary lines just tend to benefit incumbents, obviously, because you're limiting newcomers' ability to get publicity that incumbents already have by virtue of being in public office. And you really just create new channels by which people try to find ways to get their money in, with super PACs and PACs and all this other funky election election campaign finance hoo-ha stuff. So it really just makes no sense from a fundamental liberty perspective to have any of this regulation. But I don't know. Just trying to figure out what's going to be next in terms of what the professor could ask in the exam. Funny enough, funny story actually is my professor for election law studied under Obama. So not that that's saying anything about my views on liberty, but I'm a second generation a student of Obama technically, which is kind of funny to think about. I don't know if you have any thoughts on whether there should be any restrictions whatsoever on campaign finance or electioneering communication. I mean, obviously, if you're from a liberty perspective, the answer is obvious. There shouldn't be any regulation. But I'd be curious to even hear alternative views from minarchists or even mainstream statists who think that there should be some sort of regulation. Because I can't find a single strand of thought that doesn't clearly implicate restrictions on free flow of information, the freedom to choose where you want to put your money in supporting someone, or ultimately create a kind of a backwards incentive system where those who are in power tend to have the most power, and so it's great to be an incumbent because you have the publicity before the regulation, and so you kind of have that advantage, where other people coming on the road are disadvantaged by having to comply with new regulations and gaining the publicity that you might have gotten having already, spent a lot of money. All right, well, take care, guys.